Hi, I wanted to read an essay or two. This one's a philosophy essay named Quantum Gravity, Event Horizons, and Meta-Theology. I watched an interesting video concerning the Planck length and the end of space-time that prompted me to consider fairly new ideas concerning cosmology that I thought I would write of in this comment. Following, I will consider several points concerning philosophical apprehension of contemporary cosmology issues. I will also stipulate that some degree of atheism has attached itself to modern cosmology. People watch video games or movies and understand that a human designer and a producer built them. They may also theorize that advanced sentient beings or artificial intelligence might have manufactured this universe. It is arrogance and illogical to eliminate an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent being as the author of existence, that his experiences life in the universe as a possibility. For some reason, perhaps based on incomplete comprehension of the Bible and failure to comprehend modern hermeneutics, physicists have tended to eschew Scripture. God is constant, yet hermeneutics is subjective, human, and personal. Wittgenstein understood the indeterminacy of translation. Considering the way an omnipotent being would provide Scripture, meaningful to humanity of all ages, would require at minimum faith. That is something modern physicists lack. One may get the feeling that physicists find it difficult to accept the idea that any being anywhere, e.g. God, could have more intelligence than themselves. There are many ideas about dark energy and dark matter that have arisen since the discovery that the matter and energy of the universe that is known to exist comprises just 4% of the mass and energy required to explain how galaxies can cohere and why the universe is accelerating at a faster pace. There are also alternative ideas about what gravity actually is, a very small quantum particle or some other phenomena. The unification of quantum mechanics and larger, more observable forces like electromagnetism and gravity, along with the other two forces, the strong electroweak force, is a present quest. String theory has been developed to that purpose. Black holes plainly exist and have been studied to the point that they are usefully added into quantum cosmology theories. Einstein, of course, developed special and general relativity theories that explain that space-time is unified in space curves, while time is a local phenomenon of mass. Mass and energy are convertible to roughly equivalents, and the expansion of space in general relativity theory was demonstrated to exist using quasars or supernovae as Hubble distance measuring devices. Quantum mechanics coincided with general relativity in projecting the origin of the universe backward in time as if space-time were a funnel narrowing down to a single point known as singularity. At the singularity, space-time, which in modern theory is hypothesized to consist of Planck length, or smaller indivisible quanta for themselves, no one knows how space is folded or warped into itself without taking up space. It is perhaps possible that energy arises from the interaction or friction of these very small units of space-time along plate boundaries. Maybe energy in quantum field particle waves are simply very small units of space-time, friction splintered away that inevitably try to return, to join together as normal-sized units of space-time quanta. Regardless, it is a mystery how space-time can be nearly infinitely compacted into itself. I believe physicists presently prefer the idea that space-time is itself full of virtual energy, or quantum jitters, or quantum soup that spontaneously compact into singularities and then erupt into white hole explosions, creating big bangs of universes. Since I'm not a physicist, I can readily consider other scenarios. Another point to consider is the branching of cosmology theories at select points. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle about quanta and Schrödinger's wave function psi and wave function collapse is one such point. Although quantum mechanics suggested solutions to the difficulty of plotting electrons' point and speed simultaneously, because instead of being a particle, it is really a wave and can support either a non-exclusive monoverse or multiverse cosmologies. I suppose one could use Feynman diagrams to chart the relationships of various cosmology theories based on their underlying quantum mechanical methods, and then locate the cosmology on black hole event horizons or not. Hypothetical physical systems at quantum and or cosmological levels are metaphysics. Obviously, one shouldn't ossify one's metaphysical paradigm and assume it is factual without proof, and one might want to put an asterisk on metaphysical functional systems, noting that they are conditional and temporal and potentially subject to change. Even evolution theory, if it were proven, for instance, that the entire universe and its mass and energy were predetermined, would lead one to ask, would that be compatible with an evolving metaphysical paradigm? The quantum soup, some cosmologists write about, is thought to be a source of the whole universe and everything in it. Empty space is believed to have virtual particles in it that are particle pairs that appear briefly and disappear back into space. Sometimes the particles become entangled with other particles in reality and build up like a snowball, clumping together into semi-permanent mass, presumably helped along by the Higgs field, at some point to acquire a third dimension. All two-dimensional particles regarded as massless, I believe. All that built-up mass collapses into a black hole, transforming to a white hole, blasting a universe into being as it explodes. Virtual particles exist within space-time. When space-time compacts because of gravity taking all of the mass with it and collapses to a singularity, there is no space-time existing apart from the singularity comprised perhaps of compacted space-time. Really empty space is neither space-time or the virtual particles of space-time in its emptiness. Space-time is regarded as having quantum units at the Planck length or less and differs from real emptiness and non-being. No one knows if pure void without space-time units really exists, although pre-Socratic philosophers thought about the volume that holds everything, and Newton put his spinning bucket thought experiment within it. There are several meanings of nothingness. Sartre's use of the term tended to mean the absence of something that was in place. Pierre, a waiter or a soldier perhaps, was standing beside a table or an artillery piece. Then Pierre or the soldier is gone, having perhaps walked away or been taken out by HIMARS. Nothing exists in the volume of space or perceived space where Pierre was. The other kind of nothingness is that of the void of space-time. Except no physicists believe the void is more like an ether. They do believe that now, an ether with active quanta and virtual particles jittering about in it. Besides that, space-time with the jittering quanta is itself believed to be capable of shrinking back or folded up. It is itself believed to have quanta that altogether unite to comprise the space-time that matter arose in from the Big Bang. If the universe were to contract back to the start, it is believed space-time would shrink back with it or fold up. Maybe space-time is itself some form of dilute energy or wave that arose from some waveform issued by God. Scientists may believe that a non-space-time void containing the singularity that has the space-time that made the universe itself has space-time with virtual particles and is not either a pure void without energy or mass. There is something illogical in that on the face of it. Space-time should need to be made of something else within and without the singularity at the start of the universe if the space-time and virtual energy of the primordial energy was not to be drug along or infused into the expanding, exploding singularity of this universe. A pure void without space-time or mass energy is the third sort of nothingness mentioned in this essay. It is possible, of course, to place the singularity at the start of the universe upon the event horizon that hosts it and posit that virtual particles from the event horizon drew together to form the singularity. I would guess that numerous mechanisms might be considered as potentially existing around the surface of an event horizon in an otherwise entirely empty void. One can hypothesize innumerable or infinite recurrent cycles on the surface of the event horizon for creation of the universe singularity, if one wishes, with equal plausibility that with that of creation or a singularity through the act of advanced intelligence. I believe it is safe to have the opinion that an omnipotent God could structure universes, black holes, mass, energy, dimensions, and space-time quanta better than advanced artificial intelligence or a simple human scientist, and with more accuracy and purpose than that achieved with pure chance. A cosmological Weltanschauung is an ossified metaphysic in itself. One might wish the entire universe to be absolutely discrete and made of discrete quanta that self-organize without purpose, or deterministic order, and that would be in a similar circumstance, self-organized in an entirely different order and structure rather than the same ad infinitum. Without an absolutely exhaustive foundational account, a set of all sets, including itself, string theory and its quantum jitters in space-time, attempts the Gödelian summit, a metaphysic unknown greater reality can't be ruled out. Each new metaphysical level achieved and proven to be functional or observable is a stage in the climb of Mount Metaphysics. Mount Metaphysics may have not a summit and reaches upward forever. Wrong metaphysical assumptions disappear in the atmosphere beyond the mountain and can't serve as footholds for the climb. Before adding my viewpoint, I should point out that the holographic principle has arisen from research of black holes. That viewpoint is that quantum data is information existing on the event horizon of a black hole. In fact, the universe of our human experience could be information existing on the surface of a black hole. I thought I would add to that viewpoint the notion that a black hole the size of the observable universe may host our universe upon its event horizon or near it, where some dynamic pressure keeps it from collapsing. Black holes of our universe exist upon the event horizon of the hosting black hole of the universe. Maybe that is approximately consistent with the existing paradigm of our universe existing on the surface of a black hole. It is an enticing notion and acceptable to me theologically, since what the interior of the hosting black hole is unknown or even unknowable. God could add a universe to the surface of the hosting black hole anytime to let there be light, as easily as tossing a pebble into a pond. Meta-theological speculation and inferences aside, placing quantum mechanics solutions for phenomena like quantum entanglement and superpositions is attractive. John Wheeler, Richard Feynman's mentor, thought that electrons may travel forward and backward in time and that there could be just one electron. Since electrons are measured points of electron waves rather than things in themselves, and as the event horizon has different directions of time within and without the event horizon respectively, it seems quite a reasonable paradigm. Quantum entanglement of virtual particles traveling in different directions of time within and without the surface of an event horizon would present interesting entanglements challenging to understand. Yet if God tossed an information seed onto the event horizon of a very large black hole, and that seed singularity were folded up compact spacetime with enough mass for a universe like ours, it might be a Big Bang initially and then encounter some sort of event near event horizon field phenomena of dispersion equal to that conjectured in cosmological inflation. Gravity and the continuing acceleration of spacetime and quantum entanglement and superpositioning could have useful solutions found on the surface of black holes and virtual particles entangled within and without spacetime. Plainly, faster than light effects could apparently exist with several possible explanations in that event horizon region, including, yet not limited to, retro-time causality. For instance, space-time quantum units may yield energy as they encounter the event horizon of the universe or large-sized black holes, or even experience virtual space breakups like virtual particles on the event horizon, generating new space expansion of our event horizon universe. Time is, of course, relative or relational to mass energy within space-times. Gravity may be an event horizon phenomena or of entangled or superposition mass or space-time quanta on the event horizon or of the hosting black hole itself. On the surface of the hosting black hole, the countless black holes even of our own universe may have different directions of time within toward their own singularities. Space-time units may be virtually entangled around event horizons. Space-time units may have superpositions that crumble at a distance along the universe's event horizon. Practical questions remain unanswered that have taken new forms. One example is the concept of volume or true empty space wherein space-time occurs. If space-time quanta are things in themselves, they exist somewhere that is a volume of empty space at some point. Even if not immediately resting in empty space, space-time quanta are probably embedded in some other medium that is unknown. String theory may hold that one-dimensional strings exist and that comprises the phenomena of space-time quanta, primordially bootstrapping everything else into existence, yet that scenario seems to terminate metaphysical reason when a particularly mathematically satisfying position might be found. Of course, it could be correct, yet encapsulated within further physical systems insights remaining to be discovered. If one stipulates that string theory is reflecting facts, I believe more questions follow, including that of a multiverse. A multiverse is within string theory, and it should itself exist on the surface of the host black hole. Otherwise, one might want to consider some kind of entanglement or superposition of entire universes existing as properties of a universe or of a multiverse that could exist apart from a hosting universal black hole, a holographic universe of string theory criteria should not have special unknown properties, letting it communicate off of the event horizon of the host black hole, wherein more universes might be spawned from it. I suppose one might want to invent a metaphorical wolf's nose robot designed like a wolf's olfactory apparatus to sniff out new structures or bodies of interest in difficult-to-access places, perhaps adapted to sniffing out theoretical physics structures and relationships instead of earthquake victims amid rubble. For God to speak a word into the darkness to stimulate the origin of light within the universe, unpacking folded space-time configured to predestine its evolution, is a wonderful conjecture. Yet, like membrane collision theory that could itself be membrane universes meeting on an event horizon, the black hole event horizon holographic universe paradigm is just one point of configuration of infinite possibilities of construction for appearances of evident matter configuration supporting the experience of being. The interesting thing about quantum cosmology associated with black hole meta theology to me is the complexity. There are so many points and theories to consider that are complementary rather than mutually exclusive, and that may shift quickly together into new paradigms of human understanding. I have another essay I can read. I need to get from here. I think I'll read a poem first. I wrote a new poem, and it's excuse me, I scratched my nose. Sorry about that. This poem is variable quantum wave stanzas. It's something about quantum cosmology at the with everything just being a pure waveform. Variable quantum wave stanzas. Waveforms may be about all there is to reality instead of particles that are nothing more than waves measured at particular points, seemingly like particles that are simply waves at one point. All mass and energy is composed of waves or wave sections in some way detached from a parent wave. Maybe a single wave existed at the start of the universe, a word of God making all waves existing now. Space-time itself may be a wave, a sinusoidal wave with binary ups and down phases, binary opposition regarded as a hetero wave form. Space-time slopes may be up phases, and gravity a downslope wave phase, waveform, wave slopes, amplitude, etc., the explanation of what all of space-time and mass energy is made of. Fragments of the initial wave seek to recover the singular initial state of the wave, perhaps one of many waves that may exist at the event horizon of black holes with entangled phases inside and out of the horizon. Wave entanglement and superpositions on event horizon surfaces may generate fracturing, spinning off string sections, building a holographic universe on event horizons. Inflation may have been the dispersion of a large wave. With different directions of space-time within and without black holes, quantum superposition of waves on opposite sides of black hole event horizons may generate faster-than-light construction of space-time holographic universes on the surfaces of horizons until the initial wave is dispersed. While expansion slows to a stop and the wave recovers itself, the phenomenon named gravity draws quantum waves too subject to gravity with a massless particle string, at least of all, until caught up in Higgs field near the event horizon. I will read my second essay, if I can find it here. Here it is. In the quantum field and aware of it. So I continued reading a book on quantum mechanics and philosophy pertaining largely to how people perceive reality while being part of it. Philosophers in the field of epistemology have considered theory of knowledge, what it is people know and how they know it so far as the conscious mind goes, as it has input from the natural world. Quantum mechanics, and especially the Copenhagen Interpretation, found that quanta, like photons, have an indeterminacy or uncertainty principle about them. One can calculate a photon's speed or position, yet not all at once. Photons are a wave in a field. One can measure a point at the wave, yet the point isn't in motion. And besides, the wave kept moving, was everywhere all at once anyway. And another point is that the quanta can be entangled with distant quanta and have the same position when one has its waveform collapse and seemingly convey the information faster than light. There are several theories to explain that, including John Wheeler's that there is only one electron in the universe and it can travel forward and backward in time. It would have a travel itinerary, something like that of the blue man's pen laser that goes through the ears of opponents in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. This post isn't about physics. It is about the relation between philosophers, some not all, and physics, and especially, the field of quantum mechanics. Well, it's at least about the point that reality is completely relational in the quantum field. Observers are part of the system they observe and necessarily interfere with it when they make observations at the quantum level. Physicists need to know how the systems function so they can understand it and usefully explain it to everyone else, its structure, and do things with the knowledge. Philosophers might consider what's what without becoming bogged down in the technicalities, as if a kind of awareness of the quantum structure of nature would lead one to infinite mind-boggling reductionism and passive acquiescence in the Higgs field as just another region of the field's mass-particle entanglement that is self-aware. Some physicists are unable to accept the distinction of consciousness from the entangled field of which it is a part because it is a part of the field. The human mind is just a concatenation of sense data input and selection process that leads it to choose courses of action determined originally solely because they are functional immediately. The mind remains a part of the complete quantum field and really isn't so much of an individual person different from others. Rather, it is a region of the field thinking for itself as if it were a complete artificial intelligence continuing to input data, creating for itself an appearance of self-awareness. If the AI mind were really smart, it would think of itself as an individual mind. It wouldn't think of itself as an individual mind at all, but nothing more than a quantum field fluctuation at the summit of field phenomena, able to view the wave crest and other wave crests extending out to infinity on the sea of quantum virtual reality like dreaminess. In my opinion, an individual is better compared to being in a quantum river and is also a part of the river that is able to think for itself and consider what the river is. Physicists study the river and learn of its quantum character and its possibility of generating its flow of space-time, mass, and energy from nothingness. They become entirely reductionist in trying to understand the river's first principles and place their own existence and mind within the river's mechanical account. They understand the quantum and pointilless superposition of the flow that is in theory reversible in time, and that gravity seems to draw the river inward toward itself in whirlpools like black holes as it moves down the slope of entropy toward a hypothetical debauch in the wilderness or a big rip over a waterfall of accelerated space-time expansion. Philosophers, on the other hand, consider what physics relates and contemplate the nature of the flowing quanta and are aware they are part of it and that there are perceptions and that their perceptions may determine the collapse of some wave functions of river quanta, yet they're also able to regard themselves as real individuals qualitatively different than the thoughtless quanta comprising the river. It may be that philosophers can consider purpose and meaning in the river even though they are part of it, and they would have a different meaning for the word meaning than some physicists that would believe it's entirely just a concatenation of associations. It's true, but that associations are and relations are the origin of meaning in a sense, yet a meaning still has something more than that. The reductionism tends to explain away sentience in a sense. To resume, philosophers, on the other hand, consider what physics relates and contemplate the nature of the flowing quanta and are aware they are part of it and that their perceptions may determine the collapse of some wave functions of river quantity, that they're also able to regard themselves as real individuals qualitatively different than the thoughtless quanta comprising the river. It may be that philosophers can consider purpose and meaning in the river, though they are part of it, while for physicists the pure explanation with complete reductionism elevates the parts forever to a prominence above the whole, to switch to a different simile. Physicists are like members of the audience existing in a Shakespearean play, and he did write that great iambic pentameter and great sonnets. He was a great playwright. In a Shakespearean play, who accept the idea that all of life is meaningless quanta, or that information is simply quantum information regarding relationships and entanglements, superpositions of quanta, and believe, therefore, that the information and events in the play which they are part is meaningless. The events of Christian eschatology or having faith would to them be as unreal and meaningless as the entire play because it is all quantum phenomena. To consider another simile, physicists without faith are like mechanics riding in a car that believe only in the relationship of the parts and cannot have any faith that the vehicle actually has a meaningful purpose or destination, or that the parts have any meaning ultimately. One may see through a glass darkly and the horizon may be beyond human knowledge, yet those of faith believe life does have a purpose and that it is going somewhere meaningfully. And I have one last poem to read and conclude this essay reading of things. I call it Edges of a Universe poem. And obviously, some anti-Christians have attacked the four boundaries of space-time quite a bit, mentioned in the Bible, four corners of the earth. And yet, there are four corners to space-time. 3 dimensions of space, and time is the fourth dimension. So, technically, the Bible was not inaccurate. And that's kind of what this poem is about. Edges of a universe. Edges of the world, true way, Quanta traced even now. Time would flow one direction, just 4 dimensions somehow. Quanta clump, space-time gravy, where wavy spots entangle. Maybe thoughts are only real when God doth seals life angles. Forms flow in space-time tensors. Gravity cores inward too. Logic sphere with enigma. Crunching chord, feet fall through. World without end.